Welcome to the Power Panel Podcast Echoes, a segment of our show dedicated to exciting intergenerational conversations with some of Africa's young, dynamic women leaders. I am your host, Ambassador Rachel Omamo, a senior counsel, diplomat, and former cabinet minister in Kenya. Our guest today is a woman who has, over the past year, captured the imagination of Kenyans. She is Faith Odhiambo, the current president of the Law Society of Kenya and a leading corporate and commercial lawyer. As leader of Kenya's legal profession, Faith is an influential and courageous voice, particularly in the advancement of the rule of law and the fair administration of justice. Faith, I am delighted to welcome you to the Power Panel Podcast Echoes.
Asante.
I'm really excited about this one, primarily because there's a way in which our lives intersect. We're both lawyers, and we've both had this privilege of being president of the Law Society of Kenya. And so I'm really looking forward to hearing your perspectives of this role, how you have led, what your challenges have been, and who you are really as a leader. So thank you for setting aside time to have this discussion. And I'm sure by the end of it, we will both see things in common and things that have been different, and be able to celebrate women's leadership in the legal profession. I want to start off by taking you back to your election day. What were the first thoughts that rushed through your head when you realized you'd won the election?
Well, it was overwhelming, and I was like, oh my God, because I wasn't there at the counting. I think that's the first time I was sitting down since morning. And I was with a group of friends, and when we started getting the results, initially, one of my competitor had taken the lead in certain stations. Then at different stations, particularly Nairobi, started coming in, and we were like, if we keep this up, we're going to take it. And so if we were like praying and excited and also a bit scared because you can't get too happy and you don't know the end result. And when my friends called me to tell me the news, I was in awe. And those moments of we can't believe it.
All right. So what kind of a campaign did you marshal? What was, the winning formula, do you think? I mean, most of your competitors, surprisingly, were women, majority of them.
Yeah. So I think it's a campaign that we strive to do everything we could, but my aim was the bridge, that I was running a rallying unifying call for the senior bar, the mid bar, and the young bar, that we could have an inclusive law society that purposes to ensure that we take care of everyone. We focused on the rule of law, ensuring that we maintain that stability that seniors wanted to see, but also see progress that the young bar wanted to see, opportunities, scaling to, looking at climate change, AI, the new areas of practice, sports law, data protection, things that would bring opportunities for them. And the young bar, how do we support them in terms of welfare? When you are running your law firm and you're looking at how do I build to the next level? What kind of support can the Law Society offer me in my firm, and offering welfare facilities in terms of health, talking about pension schemes that they can invest in at an early stage. And so that was sort of my main rallying call, that what I would be offering is inclusive for everyone. There's something for everyone at the bar, and at the same time, I will always have an open ear. I will be with the young lawyers. I will be with my fellow age mates, the mid bar, and I will always seek the counsel of the seniors bar as well.
Now, it's interesting to me that it was a campaign that pitted women against each other. And, during my time, I think I had one woman in my council. And so what has changed, you think, 20 years down the line?
Well, I see it's amazing because we have more women coming out to vie. Sometimes even more women than men that are seeking position of leadership. And I was actually afraid that if I make it to president, then I would have very few women in my council, but surprisingly not. I have quite a good number of women in council, which was surprising for me because I thought would be very few ladies if I made it to presidency. And let me just backtrack. So, actually, when I vied the first time for Nairobi rep, we had 9 women who got into council, which was the highest we've ever had. And after the wrangles that were there in council, I think the most unfortunate thing, irrespective of the leader being a man, the women suffered because the second council, we had more men than women. Because the mantra that people are saying, you vote in more women, they will come and bicker in leadership instead of focusing on delivering, which was quite unfortunate. So I was even worried that if I make it to presidency, then I'll have more men. But surprising, the Law Society has been growing in leaps and bounds, and we still have quite a good number of women in council. Myself and 5 other women in council currently. So I think more and more, because women are daring and are starting to come out more, seeking positions of leadership, then the probabilities of having more women in leadership is also rising. Because if they miss the first time, their name is well known. By the time they even vie the second time, they're more acceptable. And at the ballot, people are looking at what can you offer. And so we're having more and more women coming out, and it's a great trend, which I'm happy about.
I mean, we're all excited about it also. And I was just wondering, as a woman president of the Law Society, what was your apprehension in terms of how people would respond to you? I mean, it was 20 years after another woman had done that job. Did you feel pressure on your shoulders to work harder, strive harder, achieve more, refashion yourself into some kind of stereotype that you felt would be acceptable to your followers?
Well, I would say that even from the campaign period, what I didn't think was a problem, I started learning could be a problem. I think for most women, we always seek to be younger, but for the first time, I wished to be older because people kept saying you're too young. And being too young, then you need to be somebody to cover you. You need a man at the top. You can't be at the top. Who will support you? Because I was the vice president of the previous president. And so they felt that, you were able to do well in that role because you had somebody else taking the heat as president. And you will not be able to particularly stand against the powers that be because people felt the current leadership in our country was quite strong. And they felt that I would not be able to take it on and I would not be able to handle the pressure. And so working to convince people that it's not a matter of age, it's track record and experience, and trying to rehash to people what you have done, what you have achieved all through the years, the positions that I've sat in before, the leaders that I've worked under, and what I've been able to achieve in each and every role. To continue trying to convince not only just the male gender, but even the female gender, particularly even older female gender. And I must say that I remember one of the seniors telling me, you need to change your dress, you need to change how you put even makeup.
What?
Yes, very, very simple things that you don't... take seriously the colors that you use to present yourself, what kind of colors you should wear. And, I was like, okay, we're in for the long haul. I'm in here to win this. And I do not want people focusing on what color of nails am I having, or what shoes is she wearing, or how short is her dress. Instead of, I want them to focus and listen to me, look at me and listen to the content that is coming out from my mouth.
Gosh, that's really intriguing and even infuriating, actually. People are always so obsessed by the appearance of women leaders. Aside from that, what other impediments did you face?
The other challenge I had was I'm a corporate and commercial lawyer mostly, and telecoms and competition expert. So you'd find me more so in boardrooms, dealing as a consultant with government and international organizations, sometimes with World Bank, IMF, and the rest. You wouldn't find me on a day-to-day carrying files and going to court. And I would go to court for certain constitutional matters or corporate client matters that you had to. So I was not a regular court goer. And one of my strongest competitors was a regular court goer, doing a lot of constitutional matters. So people are like, oh, well, you're also not a litigator. So we don't see the fire in you to be able to be convinced that you have the fire and the verve to fight. And I was like, okay, track back, look at the track record that I have as a leader, as a person. And I remember my predecessor telling me that work with what you have. Don't try to be what you're not. You're not a regular everyday litigator. It's fine. Work with what you have. You are a force to reckon with in your area of expertise. There are so many lawyers who are corporate and commercial lawyers who look up to you and work with you. There are so many in-house lawyers, as well as the even litigators who have met you in court on several matters and look up to you as well. You do not have to have done tens and thousands of cases from the Supreme Court to be able to prove that you should be the president of the Law Society of Kenya. And so I said, okay, let me focus on what I have in my hands instead of looking at, what can you try and top up in this basket to make it appeasing. And also just working with the women folk in terms of my comrades in FIDA who we've worked with time and time again, those in arbitration, the young lawyers that have touched their lives and I've worked with them, and also being a teacher of law. And so those were the differences that I brought to the table, having nurtured different from lawyers to advocates who are now in the legal profession. So I focused then on what I could do and what my experience could show, rather than trying to think of, focusing on the things that I didn't have and trying to fix myself into a box to be acceptable based on the skills that certain people felt that I had to.
Did you ever experience blatant patriarchy as you campaigned for this post?
I remember something very funny. And, sometimes people say it's just rumors and you can let it go, but some of them have impact. I remember someone saying that she's married and so her husband will be the president of the Law Society. And, I was like, this is ridiculous. But I was being told by others, this is what others are saying. And so you need to show them you are an individual. And I was like, I have been an individual as a council member, as the vice president. So what is going to change when you become the president? And so I see that as much as the legal profession has shown that it has matured and grown, there are still challenges that are there that people don't see or don't understand. People will tell me yourself, you came in and the changes that you're able to do, and you changed the whole campaign phase, moving around the country. And so I was like, what can I do different? And I said, I will dance with the young lawyers. I will debate with my seniors, and I'll sit down with my colleagues and I will tell them, if you're saying I'm too young and we're age mates, it means that you're saying that also you're too young to be able to sit at the table and make a decision, yet you're running law firms, you're hiring employees, you're impacting on the lives of so many people, you're contributing to the law society. So if, as my age mates, you're saying I am too young, it means you're also saying the same about yourself, and that you're saying you should not have a seat at the table. And also challenging and debating with my seniors and telling them, I have worked with you, you have known me, you've seen my traits. There's nothing different, it's only a title. And so I will continue to work with you, and I'll continue to serve the law society. And with the young lawyers, my commitment to try and aid them and support them as they join the society. And, sometimes it's the small mentorship that you sit together and just share the experiences and how you have grown and the struggles that you have had, that was also able to sell them and see that our journeys and the differences were not that big to get to where I was.
It's interesting to me that you were a corporate lawyer who has become the chair of the Law Society. That would have been very difficult to imagine in my time. And I'm surprised that your age was a factor. During my time, I think I was younger than you, and nobody ever raised an age issue. So that's an interesting development. Now, being the chair of the Law Society is a big deal in Kenya. It really is. And the Law Society comes with a great deal of credibility, a very strong brand that has been developed over time. It has a strong history of independence, a very strong voice in governance, a very strong voice in advancing the rule of law and the fair administration of justice, and so on. Now, as you assume this role as president of the Law Society, what weight did that credibility place upon your shoulders? That idea that you need to preserve that credibility. Did you feel the weight of that responsibility? And what have you done from just your approach to maintain that credibility, that authority that comes for being the president of the Law Society?
Well, I cannot tell you how much weight it brings, because when you look at and the history of the predecessors and the marks that they have left and the challenges that they have faced over history, facing the challenges in judiciary, facing the different executives and the leadership styles, moving from one party to multi-partyism. When I look at the role that the Law Society continuously had, I was like, this is crazy in terms of the weight that you feel. And I was asking myself, what can I do, or how can I maintain that standard? And I say, President of Law Society does not come with a manual that aids you to prepare. In terms of how do you deal with this crisis, how do you deal with this different challenges. But I've said that one thing, I remember when we had the lunch with the previous bar presidents, um, and that solidarity that they share, that they will stand with me, they will offer advice, they will offer support whenever a need be. I found that quite amazing and overwhelming. And even the seniors, particularly the senior council bar, have committed to always be of support in terms of whenever they need me, because I think also something unique is that we are a predominantly very young council. And so a lot of times you need the support of seniors also for the weight, particularly when dealing with certain concerns and issues. But looking at that weight, the kind of approach that I've adopted is to always have an open mind and open door policy in terms of I listen a lot before I make decisions. And I say that when the Gen Z insurrection happened, for me, I asked what would other bar presidents have done in terms of the expectation. They expected to speak out. They expected to uphold the rule of law. They're supposed to stand firm and hold your council together. And I remembered sitting with my council, and I'm telling them, even forget about your political positions and the parties that you want to support. Remember, we are here for a reason. Members expect this of us. Section 4 of the Law Society provides we must stand to defend constitutionalism and the rule of law. And therefore, it might call out that we are not in our comfort zones. And therefore, I decided to lead by example.
What does leading by example look like?
If it was going out to police stations, I would be the first person there. If it was going to court, I would be the first person there. And also giving as much support as I could as an individual to try and ensure that I protect my council, I protect my secretariat, and I take the lead as Faith. Just thinking about all the other presidents that have always been at the forefront, giving themselves, risking themselves for the purpose of just ensuring justice is done. And so, first of all, at the inception, you feel the fear is there, but the words of encouragement come from the different presidents. And they said, some of them will send me messages and just tell me, we also experienced this in this era. This happened. I was attacked, but I stood firm in my position, and the lawyers stood with me because I took the right decision. So don't be afraid to take the right decision.
Now, I'm just asking also about the connection between that credibility and your sense of power, the sense of power that arises from being the chair of the Law Society. I want you to listen to a clip from Justice Maaza, who we interviewed last year.
When your credibility grows in the society, and it is a legal organization, so people think you have all the mandate, all the power. And sometimes when we go to the communities, they say, oh, how come you didn't change this law? Because, it's creating a problem. So they think we could even play the role of parliament. So as you said, once you're recognized and once you build credibility, the power is really significant.
What Justice Maaza is saying there is that there's this nexus between credibility and power. Now, once you did all the things you've just told me you did, leading by example, standing in the gap, did you feel that you began to be seen as an extremely powerful person? And if you did, how did that perception begin to change you as a person?
Well, I would say, first of all, just as the judge is talking about, people now believe that you can do anything because you can tell Parliament that this is wrong, you can challenge these decisions in court. Unfortunately, now people believe you have the power to do everything. So even sometimes on my ex, I would receive so many demands and requests telling me, this is happening, do something, this is happening, do something. And how it changes you is sometimes it becomes a lot of unnecessary pressure. You feel sometimes quite overwhelmed because there's so much expectation vis-a-vis the reality of what you're capable of doing. And yes, it makes you realize, and the power that you feel is when people start having a recognition of you, even places that you didn't think people even knew you or would even recognize who you are. But for me is it becomes overwhelming, and I feel like now you're under greater scrutiny as an individual because people now expect much more from you, and you have to be careful how you behave in public, how you behave in private, in terms of how you deal with people, because the bar now raises higher with you because great power comes with great responsibility. And so once you raise that expectation of integrity and vis-a-vis the power that comes with it, that people now look up to you, they listen to you more, they follow your lead, it brings also a lot of pressure in terms of my personal experience.
What surprised you about this role?
Well, I knew the Law Society is important, but I didn't think the Law Society could bring that kind of power. I didn't understand the type of power that you can command as an individual, that you know, people will be reaching to you from all corners of the country. And even the change in conduct, because I knew certain judges or certain members of parliament even before I became president, but the demeanor and change and the conduct and sometimes the reverence and how you're treated is quite different. And I'm like, I'm still the same faith. It's just that now I'm president of the Law Society, but people have totally shifted, and even how they refer to even correspondence, that and how they respond to that correspondence that comes from you. So for me, it was quite surprising. I feel like this position has a lot of power and potential, particularly to do good. And, you know, by reaching out more and working more with community is, I feel, where the real power of the Law Society lies, that we're able to impact on more lives by us working jointly, not only with us, but with different civil society organizations. Because previously we never used to work so much with civil society organizations, but this Gen Z interaction helped us to work so much with different organizations that it showed me a different spectrum, and even the Law Society's power while working even with the media.
With that different perception of yourself and confronting just the dynamics of the power that lay in your hands, you also become a star. You're suddenly in the limelight. You have all the accolades. Everybody wants you to be on their board. Everybody wants you to talk at their speech day. You know, you have this prize and that prize. You know, how do you prevent overreach? How do you, stop yourself from falling into the clutches of hubris and ego?
Oh, well, that's the hardest, I think. How to keep yourself humble and grounded. I always tell my husband, please, when you feel that my head is growing too big, just remind me where we've come from. And for me, first of all, when you get all those calls, learning to say no and meaning no, because sometimes you just want to breathe, has been one of the difficult, because no one really understands. Your alumni wants you there, where you teach wants you there for every single faction. Different organizations that you've never even heard of all want you to attend their ceremonies, their events. For me, what keeps me grounded is my faith, to be honest, because I always say and I always know and believe that I'm here because God is one that has brought me this far. And so particularly recently, a friend reminded me, I said, I received some prize and I said, thank you for all your wonderful congratulations. And the only comment was, remember to thank God. And so I was like, oh my gosh, I forgot to do my thank you speech and start with God. And that's why I started asking myself, is it growing? Is my head growing big? Am I thinking too big of myself? So yes, you have moments that you feel like you're losing it, that you find yourself, there's an analogy I'm avoiding to use, but yes, there are moments that you feel quite important.
Mm-hmm.
And feel that God is the only one that can keep me grounded, because the prayer that I continually said, God to grant me that grace, that if this was not from him, then I should not get this position. But if this was his dream for me, or this is his journey for me, that he promises that he should not leave me. So to be honest, I would say it's God that keeps me grounded. Yeah.
As we take this short power break, we ask that you subscribe to the Power Panel podcast. Let's work together to expand the Power Panel community. Visit our website, birdsongafrica.com, and follow us on social media to plug into the Power Panel network. Email your thoughts to hello@birdsongafrica.com. This is the Power Panel Podcast. Echoes. Now, you seem to be somebody who's actually very passionate about the law. You practice it, you teach it, yeah? And then you're also part of the politics of the legal profession. That means to me that your days are pretty hectic. You must be multitasking, you must be prioritizing and reprioritizing. I mean, what is your toolkit to manage all these things that you're doing? And also being a wife and a mom, it's a lot.
It is. So what I do is, first of all, teaching, I took a break because I teach at you, and then you do not want students on X saying, you haven't marked our papers and we are seeing you giving a presser right there. So I took a break on that. But I would say that the honest truth is that sometimes something has to suffer. Because as much as it's great trying to say that you'll be able to manage everything, but you have to prioritize. So what I do is that I really prioritize taking my child to school, because that's the time I help him prepare in the morning. I ensure how he's dressed, he's taking breakfast. Then I drop him to school in the morning, and the dad picks him in the afternoon. And that's the time that we can talk. We can sing if we have to. He can tell me his stories before I drop him off in the morning. And of course, I would have signed his diary. And then you'll get feedback when you meet the teacher, and the teacher says, there's this problem here, or there's this problem here, you need to look into it. And then the rest of the day, of course, unfortunately, Law Society takes more of my time than law firm, but we had an agreement with my partners at the firm that they would be lending me to the Law Society and to the country for just these 2 years, though there are days that I try to do 2 days in a week to the farm.
What about work-life balance? How did you manage that?
Yeah, being a wife is interesting, because now I think my husband suffers the most in terms of us spending time together, and having those just date nights are not really there. Because particularly I remember during the Gen Z insurrection, I was spending more time, going out, trying to help people. I used to worry sometimes that my child will forget me, and I remember just one low moment at the end of the year when I said, now this year I'm going to focus on my baby, was because the teacher said he knows what the dad does, what he goes to work to do, but he doesn't know what the mom does. So the teachers all know me, and they showed him a picture of the mom on the newspaper and just laugh and run away. So it was for me a low moment when I went to his school day and they were having a performance, which, that moment your child walks onto the stage, you're nearly in tears because you have been waiting to see him. But the fact that I got that feedback that he didn't know what I was doing means that I needed to spend more time and explain. He knows that dad goes to work to do this, but he doesn't know what the mom does. And so that made me now say I'm going to prioritize to just ensure I spend more time with him. But I said this is for a season and a time, but the person who I know would miss the most is the baby. And with the dad, we've tried to devise a way and a plan that we try and spend like quality time together, so that, you need your marriage post LSK. But he's been understanding and he's been supportive. And sometimes we even work together on things to ensure that we are still in sync. Like when the Gen Z insurrection happened, and sometimes you'd have to go at night to police stations, and he'd be my ride or die. He'd be the one taking me from one place to another. And so in inception, he was angry and he couldn't understand why why people are calling me till late hours in the night. But when he went with me and would see the faces of the people who have been injured, and people who are crying, it started getting to his heart as well. And so he became as passionate about what I was doing, that now it was easier. But I really say it's never easy, because unless you have a very supportive partner in a family that can also be there for you and support you, particularly when you're not, one side is suffering, because I have very supportive partners at the farm, at home. My husband, my mom is a very big supporter, and my brothers and sisters. And so whenever I need help, they're always there and available and ready to assist. Otherwise, it's impossible. Sometimes even my husband reminds me that, there are things that you must deliberately diarize, the way you diarize your meetings. You must diarize Parents' Day. You must diarize if we are going for an event together, so that it is not an afterthought. It is part and parcel of, you take it as serious as any other meeting would be, which I've been working towards. I cannot say I'm perfect, but I'm working.
Well done. Well done. Now that you've moved us into this arena of family, I want to take you back to your childhood. What kind of a childhood did you have? And why did that childhood lead you to a path of being a lawyer?
Well, I'm from a Luo family. And let me just say, Luo families, I think there were 3 or 4 professions you could do. You could either be a doctor, an engineer, a lawyer, an architect. That's what all parents aspired their children to be. And not that in the entire family, that's all. I remember my sister wanted to be a doctor. I wanted to be a lawyer. But something that I would say in our family is, I had a father who was very deliberate. He was also a professor at the University of Nairobi. May his soul rest in peace. But my dad took time with us. It wasn't about a male or a female. The same time he took to teach me, teach my older brother, my younger brother, my sister. He would take time with everyone. And he would deliberately sit to encourage your passion. Like, I loved history. I loved reading books till late in the night. He would read autobiographies together, and he would now ask you questions and compare notes. So he makes it like a fun event. Like, what did you read? How did you perceive it? Why is the writer talking about this? Why is the author saying this? And so it would be exciting to compete, and you'd say, I'm reading this, what are you reading? And when I showed interest, and funnily it's from a sitcom called The Practice, then I loved The Practice because of there's this character called Eleanor and Eugenia. And they were so amazing in terms of the pro bono. They were criminal lawyers, but they'll do a lot of pro bono work in terms of constitutional matters. And I remember one moving case that they came before the Supreme Court, and they were arguing for the life of this black man who had engaged in some fight, and in self-defense, he killed the other party. And so he was on death row, and then arguing this case in the Supreme Court for the US. And they were so good that they were able to save this individual. So for me, my passion of, like, I want to be like Eleanor and Eugenia, I want to change lives. I want to walk into court, argue, you're wearing a sharp suit, and be able to win cases. And people will be saying, that's a very intelligent lawyer. And so that's my initial depiction. So I thank God I didn't focus on Vioja Makamani. I would have lost that dream.
What were your parents like?
And then my dad was always encouraging. He was somebody he was from a large family, and he grew through scholarships. He went from high school to university to his master's and to PhD through scholarship, all through being a last born of 24 kids. And so the way he would encourage us and tell us that he has no stupid children, all his children are intelligent. And therefore, he believes that we are all intelligent and we must succeed. And you'd be the first parent at Parents' Day to be seen in any of our schools. And, he was really tall. So people would say, Faith, that's your dad with the newspaper. You just see the tallest parent walking into the room, and you'd always be number one in school and asking questions. But he's also still the same parent who'll be there in all my swimming competitions, in all our sports days. He was very deliberate in doing things with us, for us. Of course, my mom as well, but my mom was more of a tough nut, disciplinarian and focusing on you being prim and proper. But my dad, in terms of your dreams, things that you wanted to achieve, he took time and he would talk to you like a friend rather than a parent. My mom was the strict parent who ensured that you're not going to embarrass me as girls, But I think that kind of nature of supporting and pushing us to our goals, and not saying that girls should only do this, boys should only do this. And you'd sit us on the table and say, once you finish your certificate of KCSE, you'd say, that's just a paper. You've not gotten a proper paper for you to sit like a proper man and woman before me and discuss. You need to have your degree, then your master's, then we can sit like equals at the table. And he pushed all of us like that. And so I say, my father really played a very important role, and my mom as well, who always pushed us to be more. She's the one who pushed us to do French, to do accounts. I would be like, Mom, why are lawyers doing accounts? And she'd be like, because you need to be able to compete in the market and be able to do different things. Because she was an accountant. She was an auditor at KRA. So also she had hopes and dreams would follow after her. But irrespective of us taking different journeys, they were both very supportive parents, I would say. Yeah.
Were you a calm child? Were you as calm as you are now? Because one of the things that is quite distinct about you is your calmness and composure.
No, I was a calm child. Okay, let me say, I'm a calm person until you step on my toes, because I can get very angry as well. But yes, I was definitely more of a calm child. I was actually shy. And so people, even teachers who knew me when I was young, I was like, faith and leadership, that doesn't sound like you. I think also over time, because my mom is somebody who's always been active and is in different spheres of leadership. So just seeing her style of her campaigning and doing things, I've always, I think subconsciously we've picked up on them. But yes, I would say I'm generally a calm person.
Do you think that's an advantage to your leadership?
I would say yes, because when people see the tougher side, they are more in surprise. You take them off guard because they're not expecting that. And also the expectation is that people want someone who is always abrasive. And at some point, I think even in our campaigns, people wanted somebody who was strong and tough, but still be able to bring people together, sit at the table and have, a meeting of minds. And so for me, I feel it was still an advantage at the end of the day, because you're able to still deliver without having to shout and bang tables and make so much noise. For me, I felt it's an advantage, because it takes also people off guard when you're calm and you're ready to talk and listen to their side of their story. Then they're like, okay, she's different. Let's see if this can work. Yeah.
What part of your character do you have to work on every day? What is the undertow, the things that you feel pulls you back?
And I'm impatient, sometimes anger management. I would say this because of my impatience. Some people say I'm a perfectionist, but I don't really think I'm a perfectionist. I just expect people to do their jobs. Like, if you have been given this task, you should be able to perform that task. And so being patient and understanding, I feel that drags me down all the time, because you have to learn to breathe in, breathe out. We have different upbringings. We have different ways in which people do things, understanding different characters, because I've done the corporate governance trainings and for teams and team management, and I am a red. And so you have to keep learning that you can't push everyone. You won't lead a team by making everyone backing orders or giving directions and everyone will just follow line. There are people who need to be explained for, to be taken slowly, and you need to hold other people's hand, which is a struggle for me. It's not my natural attrition in how I work. My natural attrition is to give direction and tell you we are going this direction. Do I understand? I've given the general direction of the things we need to do, and let's move towards this. And so I need to keep teaching myself that that's not the way. I'd say that sometimes I have an advantage. My CEO is a green, and whenever she feels like I'm really steam shipping ahead, she'll be like, you need to take people a bit slower. Others, you might end up leaving people at the train station. And so I have to keep telling myself and learning and unlearning in terms of how to be more patient, how to be more understanding. Because I said if I master patience and understanding, then I would make a very good leader.
So how do you take criticism and opposition? Because
Well,
there's a lot of it in the law society. Your council members are opposing you, the secretariat's opposing you, the public's opposing you, everyone's opposing you. How do you manage criticism, opposition?
I've learned to accept. There are two ways in it. I listen to criticism, but I try and pick out what are the issues in that criticism. Is it our way of service delivery? Is it our way of responding to concerns? Are there ideas that are being put forth that are being ignored, and that's why people are angry? And I always try to reach out because obviously I'd say at the beginning of the year our system was having a problem and we had so much criticism and some borderline even abuse because of the uproar. And so I reached out. So I was responding to queries on a day-to-day. I said, let's not give excuses. Let's sit and deal with the problem. You respond to all different queries. I would go to the secretariat almost daily to demand, let's see results. What solutions are we coming up to resolve the crisis that is there? But we said, we can deal with the personality issues later. Let's deal with the solution that we have at hand. Because I try not to focus on the person, but I focus on the issue. So if there's an issue that I'm being criticized on that I'm not dealing with well, either we try and deal with it or change tact, or I seek advice on how to deal with it, or we sit at the table. Because if it's an individual to an individual that has an issue, personal issue, then we sit together and try and resolve it.
Criticism also arises from within the law society. At least that's my recollection. How did you tackle that?
I think you can never make everyone happy. So there are some, once you've dealt with the issues and some are still just making noise, now you have to sift what is politics and what are the real issues. Because of course there are some that are politically motivated to just fight for the sake of making noise. And I think it comes with the territory. By the time you get to president, if you cannot sustain pressure, then it'll really show and falter, because you still have a team that is looking up to you for leadership and looking at for you to give direction irrespective of whichever crisis. So I've learned to accept that there are people who will never like me, and there are people who you'll never make happy, but focus on the issues. Because a lot of majority of members or even members of the public, if you resolve the challenge or the issues that they're raising, then you'll see the quieting, things calm down, because you're focusing on what they want dealt with. And some there are some criticisms that come on social media that you cannot really even respond to because people are talking from a point of not knowing. So I focus on either you correct the information on the media so that now it's amplified. You do not have to go responding to each and every individual.
at the time when I was chair of LSK, there wasn't social media. There wasn't. And so I'm wondering whether you get bullied on social media, whether you get abuse, whether people intimidate you. I mean, it's a double-edged sword. It's something that propels your leadership. It's also something that crushes your spirit. What's been your experience?
Well, there's bullying, and then some is even institutional. So some I really don't mind, and some you respond to, because when certain issues are being raised that are not false, that will create a bigger narrative, is what you have to ask yourself. And there I get advice. Sometimes I get advice from people who are experts in communication, what you must respond to, what you don't need to respond to. But social media bullying is big, and not just from the members of the public, it's also from advocates. You have advocates who abuse you. Some I just mute, or you block them, because some are, certain abuses, even if you waste your time, you will just find yourself, rallying yourself on a pigsty. You're muddling yourself in mud, and it never helps. And you see, as a leader, the expectation is that you must raise up to the occasion. You cannot get involved in, the back and forth banter. And so it's always a difficult balance. There are things that you must clarify.
All right. So I wanted to ask you, as we begin to wind down this interview, what is your greatest disappointment? And how have you managed it? Are you one of these people who cries over spilt milk, or do you just dust yourself off and carry on?
Okay, in terms of my role as Law Society, I would say, okay, my disappointment is in terms of there are areas that I thought would be able to outgrow. In terms of the Law Society, a project that I'm really hoping that I can start out is finally having our building. But there's always that pull and push. We're not growing in terms of us thinking strategically. I get quite bogged down, like the last annual general meeting, us focusing so much on sideshows rather than us focusing on the future, on how do we develop our profession, how do we think of financial freedom at the backdrop of all the challenges we're having, particularly with our relationship with the executive. We have other bars that have moved on and are owning hotels, are running insurance companies, are breaking even for the purposes of being able to maintain. They have beautiful buildings. We pride ourselves as the premier bar, and yet we are still dragging behind on old politics, trying to shut down each other at annual general meetings, trying to fight at AGMs, instead of us thinking, how do we focus in the future of our practice? How are we looking in as advocates and locking ourselves towards the future? And even, I'd say also, disappointment in our members in Parliament in terms of them focusing on supporting laws that will help develop the legal profession. But I am the kind of dust yourself and move on, because I see there are so many things that you can still achieve. You cannot cry over spilt milk. And I always insist that I will push until the last day. I've set my agenda for this year, and I want to leave certain deliverables that can be remembered, that when Faith was at the Law Society, she was able to push for 1 to 3. And I've said, irrespective of the naysayers, we must achieve certain deliverables for our membership. And so I'm going to still push on it. And I will not listen to the naysayers. So yes, I don't cry over spilled milk. My friend always says, take 2 minutes to mourn the whichever losses that you have. So I always take the 2 minutes. I mourn for the 2 minutes. Then I say, let's move on. We can still achieve something else.
What kind of legacy do you think you've built so far as president of Law Society?
So far, I think I've built the legacy of raising the Law Society to where it was before in terms of the members of the public looking to the Law Society for direction, for support, for being able to stand up and stand out in terms of protection of the Constitution, of the rule of law. And the legacy that the Law Society is not afraid, be it of the executive, parliament, or judiciary, we're going to stand firm, not only to defend the rule of law, but to defend the legal profession from any sort of attacks. And I hope that, and my ardent wish is whoever takes after me will keep that fire burning. And we will continue to raise higher, because I've seen the public goodwill because of the Law Society coming out in large numbers. And for me, it's also humbled me to see the great humanity that is there in members of the bar, and also the future of the Law Society, our youngest members who have tirelessly offered their free services, irrespective of the challenges they continue to suffer as they start up their own practices. And so I know if these are the seeds of the members that we have now, then the future of the Law Society is still great. And I firmly believe that the executive will still have some tough time trying to break the law, because we have formidable and amazing young lawyers growing in this legal profession, and the kind of support that they have shown, for me, it speaks volumes of the potential. And the Law Society, if that is the kind of fire that is there, will continue to grow.
Okay. And as we close, I'd like to know what your power mantra is. You've experienced power now, seen it face to face over the past year or so. You've led in many capacities. What's your power mantra?
It is hustle, grit, and grind.
But you must break it down. We must understand what you mean. What is to hustle, to be gritty, and to grind?
A hustle is always look for opportunities wherever you can. Being a lady lawyer, I think the challenges I faced is learning to look for business and do the business and run the law firm at the same time. And so how to be, not to be seen as a flower girl at the table, but also be seen as a leader and also somebody who is looking for work. You've come to aggressively look for work for your firm. And at any given time, how do you continuously look out? Just don't be comfortable at any particular space and say, now I feel I bought a car. Wow, that's okay. I bought this. Now we're okay. How do you continuously strive to push yourself? Grit is that tenacity that you should have at any given space and any given time. I love the kind of mentors I have because they are senior to me and they have achieved in their different areas of life. And so I keep them in my life not only to hold me accountable, but also there are odds that I keep looking at and saying that I'm not comfortable at this area because look at what they're doing, look at the doors they're breaking. One of my mentors says, never have a cupcake mentality. There's always room at the top. If you hustle, you fight at the bottom, you will feel that it's a cupcake because there are too many striving. But if you raise higher, you'll find that at the top, there's so much cake to eat that you cannot feel it. So make sure you rise up to that level, but at the same time, rise with others. And grind is every day do the best that you can, wherever you can. Sometimes life feels like, you're just regurgitating through the rigors of life. But the opportunities will eventually come. So just keep grinding, keep moving. You will have that day that star opportunity will land. Because I say that from the first time I vied, I never saw myself as president or vying for president. And so, keep working hard, keep pushing, and you never know, God will send that opportunity, but make sure you're ready for it.
Thank you so much for a wonderful conversation. I think I've gotten a better understanding of who you are. And let me just say how proud I am that you've been able to follow with such panache the little footsteps that we planted 20 years ago. And you're doing a very good job. And I think most advocates are proud of your endeavors and keep going.
I cannot tell you, Nap, how much that means for you to say that you're proud of me. Because you led that flag, and I think from you was the hope that so many others had that they would make it as president. And so whenever people would say, I would like Rachel Omamo did it, it's time for another Rachel Omamo moment. And so it's an honor and a privilege to be hosted by you. And thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. We are grateful to Faith Odhiambo for the candid and deeply personal conversation that we have had. Her story reveals the weight of the responsibility that accompanies leadership, the need to lead by example and to stand firm in one's convictions. Leadership is not for the faint-hearted. We wish Faith well as her journey continues, and we also thank you most sincerely for listening and look forward to your company on our next episode. This is the Power Panel Podcast, Echoes.